of Ash and Flo. This is Unbillable Hours, a podcast about professional services marketing. Stick around to listen to our insights, tips, and best practices to improve your firm's marketing and even your career.
So I was thinking, I sent you this study that showed how in the software as a service business, the good old sort of lead generation model, where marketing pushes out content and so forth to aggregate leads, which is essentially sort of contact information, right? Mm-hmm. And then hands them to sales, so sales can do an outbound motion and contact these people. How that is becoming super ineffective or inefficient. It's always been inefficient, but it's getting to a point where it's really painful. And what is working better is product-led growth. Like where I put out a software solution which you can sort of self-trial, like there's either a free trial or there's a freemium option somewhere. So people do self-service onboarding, use it for a while, and then create signals within the app. And that's what triggers the call from sales. Like Monday, for example, is probably an example of this. Like people use it for project management, blah, 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 use their corporate handle or something to opt in. And then essentially a sales team, if enough people on my team sort of independently use it, they might call us up and sell us on an enterprise license. So I think there's lots of issues with the product-led model. I'm not a SaaS expert, but I see many areas where it will be difficult to use, whereas others where it might work super well. I don't know. But it still got me thinking, if that is such a cool model, which that was the gist of the report, is there something similar you could do as a service business or in consulting? What is the good equivalent of consultancy could do to this freemium version or the free trial where I give you actual value for free in a way which I can afford? I mean, that's the tricky part because you got to pay your consultants. But then, so you can have quite a bit of value before I actually tap you for the full thing. And I think, and we discussed this previous to this recording, I think communities could be a way to go, or content plays that are much more like course material education.
That's an interesting angle, because what I was thinking is, in order to be effective, you need to have prior cases and you need to have research.
Yeah.
So you could obviously build a service where you provide the information, but you don't provide the detailed research. And that's what they pay for.
Oh, okay. So that would be the idea. I get to...
If you're doing freemium.
That's almost like the Gartner and Forrest and so forth model, right? I get a bit of the stuff for free and on the blog and elsewhere, but if I really want to get down into the research, I have to pay a subscription or whatever.
Yeah, that's the market research model. But what Gartner and Forrester and all do these days is they don't even give the high level stuff. They give just like the basic ranking, which means that if you actually want any amount of information, you have to purchase it, which is not really helpful. What I'm saying is give like...
So they make you fill out 10 form fields for what is like the most sad.
What I'm essentially saying is...
I've just downloaded something from their website last week and I was like, that is why you had to give me like 15 alternative company phone numbers to get that? Like, that is not... Well, anyways.
What I would say is, think about it like content that we create, especially in, large consultancies.
Oh, yeah.
Let's give them the executive summary for free because it actually has some analysis and some data. But if you really want to know more, we've got this huge thing that has all the big data that actually has insight into it. That you got to pay for.
That is, Statista, for example, the platform where you can find sort of research on it. I was discussing that a while ago with a friend you and I both have, who's a research lead in a large consulting firm. I said, why don't we build a service that is sort of like that? Because we know what many of the clients take consultancy research for is they take that stuff and they put it into their own business cases, strategy presentations, whatnot, right? Mm-hmm. So why don't we, for example, you could do that as a account-based marketing program. And let's say you work for large automotive clients and you offer each of them access to a platform where they can find all the breakdown charts from your automotive research already made on slides which come in their branding, like just for that. I mean, that's not revenue generating. It's more of an account-based play. But I could see that work.
No, actually, it is revenue generating.
Also,
it is revenue generating. It's just that for a large consultancy to make it revenue generating, they have to invent a new service called something blah 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 advisory. Otherwise, it's not really going to fly because they won't know where the revenue is coming from. It does make revenue because what happens is, like, an example, having worked at companies where they need these kind of consulting work,
Yeah.
when you need to move a large project, right? Okay, let me just make a hypothetical case. There is a company that's got a large digital transformation project, for instance. They have got enough information to say that, hey, we will finish this project in 5 years. However, the teams there realize that if you put in this amount, if you put in this piece of software, bring in this consultant, bring in this information, we can reduce the time from 5 to 3. And while the cost here would be high, there's all this additional cost in the back end that we are now paying because we don't know how to fix it, that could be reduced. And they need this information to present to their big guys.
Yeah.
And they don't get that information. They don't have it. Whereas we have it. Actually, in a sort of way, it's like the blockchain kind of thing. So companies don't want.
Okay.
Companies don't want to like take an automobile manufacturer, for instance, multiple ones of them. They all know that they would like to know how often do automotive parts manufacturer, like a tire manufacturer. They all would like to know how long do tires last, from various companies. How long is it before they change? When do they press pause? They need to get all that information, but they can only get some amount of information from, say, their own company, and they'll get that from various plants and stuff. Now, suppose there was a ledger, a blockchain, where all companies could put in their information. No one single owns it, but they can now, using this information, understand, right, factories in this region produce tires that last longer, in this region don't. They won't necessarily know who or what, but they'll know the regions. That will mean that they'll improve their operational efficiency there. They'll also know, like, people driving in these countries have it this way, and they'll get all that kind of data that they need. And they're getting it from a pool of data that essentially is, in our world, owned by consultants or services provided by consultants.
So you're making me think about something. So I started by saying that maybe the example is the freemium model stuff from SaaS companies, and consultancies should think about, or consulting marketers should think about, can I do similar play? What you're saying seems to me like if I take the blockchain out of it to make it a bit easier to implement, it's actually more like the credit card company example, right? Where the credit card companies do this all the time. They take the data they see from the transactions, spending habit stuff, they aggregate that, they sell the insights into consumer behavior.
Yes.
Not all people know this, but marketing in credit card companies often is revenue generating because they sell that stuff to third parties. And it's very often the marketing functions that do that or that have a hand in it. Anyways, you could think what you're saying is, think about, as a consultancy, think about that. Like, where do you have insight? You work for lots of clients in the same sector, like same thing. Where can you build benchmarks, aggregate statistics, like just stuff that once anonymized still has enough value so people would maybe either directly pay you for it, like research firm style. I download your spreadsheet, costs $290. I'll still pay it because it's much easier and cheaper than having my own interns research it for 10 weeks. Or you could even give away that access for free, or for, in exchange for some lead information. I don't know. So that would be an equivalent to product-led growth. Yeah, interesting.
So
I want to do this. I'm not sure I get the. I'm not sure I can do the blockchain part of it, but I like the idea.
Yeah, the anonymized part really works because. So if you're looking at a marketing model, right? If you're trying to sell professional services marketing, think about it like you have X number of industries, say 20 industries. You're running multiple programs across all these industries. There are things that are common across all these industries, and this data that we know as marketers is quite valid, not just in one, but in others. But the industries don't necessarily know that.
Yeah. And I think what I like about but I guess the blockchain would do in this example is it makes it trustworthy because it's now all the transactions are public. It's all on the ledger,
Mhm.
so everybody can. It's verified that the information is legitimate,
Yeah.
as opposed to if I just sell you a bunch of PDF with data on it, Statista
Mhm.
style.
Mhm.
I could have made those up, and you had no chance of, or very little chance of proving you wrong, right? And that's
Yeah.
the thing with the Statista thing is, I pay for the subscription, I download the stuff. Of course, they source their stuff and so forth,
Yeah.
but am I actually in a position to verify that that's actual data? No, I'm
Yeah.
not. I mean, it's not critical with the stuff they are peddling, but as
No.
soon as
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
as soon as you get into what was your first example, like tires, maybe
Yeah.
safety relevant issues, cybersecurity stuff, right? Breaches,
Mhm.
like all these information requests. I just work on a project right now where it's a very banal KPI, but this clients are fascinated by it's just this question of if you do a digital twin project
Mhm.
in a certain industry, what is the average time to value in that particular case? It's about 18-ish month, which makes it a very challenging sell to the CFO because it's like a high risk project. It's not quite cheap, and I say, what? How long until I see results? 18 months. Like the corporation's patience is really tested with that. So that's a challenge. They're looking at how can we bring those number down, and then it's very interesting for them to see what the various benchmark rates are in certain industries and how these projects had been delivered. And that's information only the consultancies have because we have done so many projects, right? There's
So
no
this
so you could totally build a marketplace for these types of information is my point. We've gone down quite a rabbit hole, but I like it. I mean, it's a good answer to the product led alternative.
So the interesting thing about what we said is we've essentially created a new market research company, a new model for a market research company here. We have the thing that
You
was
just look inside
interesting.
your own data. I mean, all the
Yeah.
companies do that all the time for marketing purposes. I mean, like email marketing SaaS companies always publish these, oh, here are the opening rates by industry type things. There's nothing else. You just look inside the data that you have as exhaust from your revenue generating operations. And consultancies don't do that as much because I don't know why.
Because they're sitting like banks. Banks used to get all the information from their customers coming into their website, where they came in from, and all of that. Yet they were not able to provide them the right kind of financial advice in case of struggling customers. B, not able to convert them into their products by telling them, "Hey, you look like a high value customer. Maybe you need the specific card." Like, they were not able to market those specific things despite sitting on a wealth of data. I remember speaking to a CXO of a large bank about 5 years ago. Well, no, longer, but 7 years ago, who said, "We have this mountain amount of data. We have so much,
Yeah.
but we just don't know what to do with it." And that's the same situation. But what you discussed earlier made me think marketing needs to be cross marketing, because one of the things that consultancies do is try to sell to specific buyers without realizing that these buyers have to influence the other buyer. Like the person, say a buyer is in the technology function in the company, like research and development stuff. How do they get money to get these things going? They need to influence their CFO to get the shit done.
Yeah, I think I disagree slightly. I think that is sort of understood, and I see often call them fledgling attempts to deal with that, but they're very often in this old sales model of what I call the politicizing way, where you draw a stakeholder map and you say, okay, there's the who's in the buying committee, like the CFO, this guy, that guy, and you make up almost like an individual story for each one of them. Like you chisel out the benefits for the CFO, blah, talk to them about it, talk to them about blah blah. But that is not always working because what you actually like, you have to be able to paint a picture of the future that is beneficial to all those agendas,
See,
as opposed to
that's
playing to each agenda individually and then hoping that the committee, once it convenes, decides in your favor, because these are not the same things. You've given every side good arguments for you, but they might still disagree in the process and how it works.
so you're right on that point, but that's not what I was thinking. What I was thinking is You need to provide the R&D guys, for instance, all the information that they can use to convince the CFO. You don't need to waste time telling the CFO this is how beneficial it is, because that's pointless. You don't know the inner workings of the company.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, now I get it. Yeah, right. You're right. And that because that is pointless, and that's still I still see that people try to tackle it that way. And here's the talking points for the finance button. Yeah. It's better to equip your own champion that
Equip
way.
your own champion
But
with understanding of the others, so give them all the information that they need to do to convince them. The whole point is you gotta understand how to sell to your specific group, but using that group to influence the others.
You gotta help them build the case.
Yeah, not influence. Yeah.
But I wanted to. I mean, just going back to this idea of you said the new research firm, a new research model.
Yeah.
Maybe we're just. Maybe that's true. Maybe we invented that, or we're just expanding the content play to a level of sophistication where we get into this type of product-led model. I don't know what it is, but I want to think about what we would need in order to pull this off in a consulting firm. Right. So why are they not doing this already? I think one, there's a bit of a lack of structure when it comes to collecting data. Like most consultancies I have seen do not have an client onboarding framework that, for example, picks off standardized information about the client or the project. Well, the client they might have, they capture like standard CRM stuff, right? But let's say this example I used earlier with the digital twin projects and the KPI, that particular firm has that data for a number of, I'm going to make this up, 20 digital twin projects, but they have done 60 others where no one captured that particular data point, right? So that's probably the first step is you have to have some process in place to make sure you build that internal database so that you can use it then. So that has to be a good structure in place. That will be one challenge. And the second challenge I can think of is because consultancies are so sort of partner-led or managing director-led, what it says, the individual owner of the client relationship who drives the projects, they might be hesitant to share what they have with the others. Because but there's also sort of a bit of a competitive situation. So
here's
capturing the data and then sharing it. Those would be my two things you need to put in place before you continue.
I definitely want to add on to your last point. Ownership. That's the important thing. Because what happens in consultancies is they don't own the data. They collect the data, but they don't necessarily own the data. As someone as both of us who worked in consultancies, multiple times you've got this result from someone, but then you're like, oh, I'm not supposed to say the name of the company or the client or whatever because I don't own the data, they do. Now, this is where having a blockchain model comes in handy because you get all these data anonymized.
Yeah.
They still own their data, you don't own their data, but you get to know everything about this and you can provide them information. Then it doesn't take a genius to figure out who you're talking about sometimes. And no one has specific, if they provide this information and prepare findings and a report and everything, they should be able to give advice to companies even before the company understands that they have a problem. And this feeding of data would be continuous. That would be the best part. So they could constantly see and they could also advise on improvements.
So, but I mean, to your point, I get what you're saying with they don't own the data. They don't own many of the data points, but I think they also generate their own data points, which could be interesting. So on this notion of the trying to build a product-led model, I think we can agree there's a couple of things people could explore. One is maybe have some sort of educational course or ongoing community thing people can, which is relatively easy to maintain, offers high enough value so people opt into it. I think the second thing we discussed were with your sort of insights sharing platform solution, which you could take to the blockchain level, really, really market and serve up as a product the data and the insights you have in your consultancy. That's probably a difficult thing to do. And those are the two. Did I miss anything?
The only thing I would say is based upon everything that we spoke about for the second point, your USB is your high-level SME. I hate using abbreviations, but your subject matter expert is your unique
you're
selling
right.
proposition.
Whatever goes into those products, either, whether that's the community or the insights pieces, that doesn't come out of marketing. I'm sorry, or marketing can polish it up, but the actual, I hate the word content, like the core of it has to come from the actual experts, because there's no, if you are not in the trenches of that stuff, you will not be able to serve up something that's valuable to the audience. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Which is a big problem in a lot of the stuff that's being put out.
Yeah,
It's
because
written by professional bloggers or the marketing people who have a decent understanding of the stuff. No offense, they're very good. They're like trade press journalist level or something, but that is probably not good enough. It's probably not good enough to make
there's
really
an ongoing there's an ongoing debate in some circles about we need to make things more professional, like say, a book, and like a business book, or do we need to make it more technical, like the audience who actually read or engage with that content? And there's no right or wrong answer to that.
No,
because
I was going to say you'd probably need both, because top of the funnel, the book's probably helpful. It's easy access, broad targeting, blah blah blah. The closer you get to the deal, the more technical you've got to be, because that's when people really want to know, how does this actually, what is the time to value for that digital twin project, sir? And you better have a good answer, right? And not just some marketing.
Yeah, exactly.
Fluff,
so
sorry.
yeah, I think we've covered this we went on tangents, or rather I did, but
No, I did the same. That's okay. That's what people come here for.
Yes.
Right? Oh, 3 to 5 listeners. No, that was good though. I really want to think about this blockchain data platform now. Who's going to build that for me? No one.
I think we can look around. I think this is something that definitely will happen in the next couple of years, but people in marketing need to start thinking of new ideas.
You know who our friend in India is. I discussed it with him all the time. I said, if I see some really choppy stuff coming out of some analyst firms or research houses, and they sell it, whereas on our end, I see pristine research being done, it's handed out for free, and I'm all for it. I hate gated content as a content marketing ploy. That doesn't work, because it prevents you from building the reach you need. But why not have a component of selling some of it, like you said, the real meat, the real insight? Why not distill that out even further and then sell that? I have so far no takers. No one in the consulting firm world wants to do that. I think this is a beautiful point of view. Like, add the raw data at the end, offer people the opportunity to do their own correlations on some website, and then slap a sticker on it. It could be 149 euros. It's good enough.
There's a reason why the researchers and us work on that, because we are all after thought capital and data, whereas the others are about more financial data.
Yeah, well, but I mean,
there we go. I mean, they're related, but I think there is a model here, and we could probably discuss. Yeah, another time at length.
Probably do that if we had the time. All right, now that was fun. I'm gonna stop this here, I think.
Thanks for listening to Unbillable Hours. If you want more, tune in next week. You know where to find us.